Mom came in
Mom.
and she looked at the TV, and then she looked at me and looked at the TV, and then looked at me and said, just literally, you nailed it verbatim. What are you watching?
I'm Cassandra.
And I'm Shawn.
And this is the Call Your Dad podcast. All right, welcome back, guys. We are doing another episode of Call Your Dad, and this time we are switching things up just a tad. We are going to talk about pop culture phenomena then versus now.
Mm-hmm.
So back in the dinosaur times versus the current times. And so I gave you a little bit of homework.
Uh-huh.
And do you want to tell everyone what that homework was?
Yeah, so I had to flush an hour of my life down the toilet yesterday and watch an episode of Love Island.
Woo!
And aside from the 1 hour that I was going to have to spend, I really didn't want to spend $3.99 for a Peacock trial. So I eventually found like a bootleg of a bootleg on YouTube. And within 30 seconds, it was exactly what I thought it would be. So at some point, you owe Mom and I an hour of labor as a reciprocal payback for, just erasing from my life 60 minutes I'd really like to have back.
Yeah, so, okay, obviously I've been keeping up with Love Island. I feel like a lot of you all I've probably watched it or at least seen the internet memes. So I do want to hear, and maybe it's because it's a show that comes on. It comes on every night at 9 o'clock. They are filming it in real time. So those producers and editors are quickly filming throughout the day, editing it, and putting it out. That way we can keep up in real time. So it's become like this culture thing with my generation. I feel like so many of my clients and friends, that's all we talk about right now. It's like, oh my gosh, did you see this episode? Because I will say, I think the reason that so many of us like it is because we basically check out of reality. Like we are not thinking of anything else during this time. We're just watching. We're not thinking about our jobs. We're not thinking about the stress we have. We're just tuned in. And I mean, I call it trash TV. So
Well, I would say that the people on the show have checked out from reality. There's nothing about that that's even remotely real. Like it's a completely fabricated environment.
oh, it's so great.
And like, oh my gosh, I met this guy and it was wonderful. And we were at this all-inclusive resort in this wonderful location. Like, what? Okay, I'm sure you had fun.
Yeah. Well, okay, so on the thing, they're like, can I pull you for a chat? So can I pull you for a chat? What are your top three takeaways from watching Love Island?
That none of this ends with two people sitting on rocking chairs on the front porch watching their grandkids talking about the life they've lived.
Maybe Nick and Alandria.
Whoever. I didn't take time to write down the characters and really get into these compelling protagonists, because if you say that they're doing that in real time, my question is, in 24 hours, did they find the dumbest 60 minutes of those exchanges, or are those the best? Because either way, I have serious reservations about the trajectory of our country, if that's even remotely indicative of any sort of insight into that. Because they're all probably mid-20s or something like that.
I think so.
Yeah, well, 25 going on 8.
Well, it is entertaining to me. So, okay, but at least, I mean, hey, you participated. You did the homework. You watched the show. And this is coming from someone who's never watched a Jersey Shore episode, never watched a Kardashians, Real Housewives, no reality TV at all for this guy. So this was actually probably a huge deal.
I'm going to be laying on my deathbed thinking, gosh, if only I had watched more Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, I'd feel so much more complete. Now they're young. Maybe at some point, I don't know if they're suffering from terminal stupidity or if this is just a temporary condition, but they're not easy people to root for, right? It's basically a bunch of dudes who have probably been consuming hours and hours of some TikTok influencer's version of what masculinity is. This is how you go. Here's your checklist on how to go snag women. And then the women are watching and consuming hours and hours and hours of some other quasi-celebrity's perspective on this is how you bag a guy, you future gold diggers. And then they both come into this environment and run each other's playbook against themselves. Like none of their exchanges seemed in any way deeply authentic. It was basically them slinging catchphrases that they had seen on the Instagram towards each other. And so like the one episode, the one that I was tortured to watch was when they were given these plastic babies.
Okay.
And within 45 minutes, they're all saying things like, oh my gosh, she is like such a great mother. I mean, like, she is a great mom. And like they were talking about being parents, like the way Katy Perry talked about being an astronaut after spending, 7 minutes, okay, carry the one, 420 seconds or whatever in space. And like, oh man, like he is just such a wonderful father. I mean, oh my gosh, like it's just so extra or whatever, you know.
Oh, so good. So good. Now, I do have one more question about the Love Island. When you watched it, did mom watch it with you, or did mom walk in and be like, what are you watching?
Oh my, that is exactly what happened. Mom came in and she looked at the TV, and then she looked at me and looked at the TV and then looked at me and said, just literally, you nailed it verbatim. What are you watching?
Yeah.
Then I had to explain it was homework, like this is for
It's
work.
like all these girls running around in their bathing suits.
Oh, bathing suits, that's being generous.
And mom's like, that is funny.
Yeah, I've seen more fabric, in a handkerchief than what they were wearing. And when, if they are ever moms and dads, I'm not trying to pick on like the women, right. Well, I think that her baby's going to go hungry when the formula budget is in competition with her thong budget, because I question the priorities of these people at this age. Again, they may be a lot different. After about 10 more years of this, some of them are going to like figure out, this is not really working for me. But
yeah. Well, the guys here at Andy's Media, they know. I told them I do have one surprise for you. I did sign up for season 8 of Love Island.
Yeah. I'm very happy for you.
I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
I thought you meant like you like pre-ordered the season.
No.
Oh, you meant like you're going to be a contestant, quote unquote, or whatever?
Am I too old?
No.
I'm too old, probably.
Well, is it
too old?
Is it too old to put your kids up for adoption? Like, would you fit into one of those like firehouse drop boxes? Like, okay, I don't want, I just can't handle this child. Do they make those big enough to like stick you in? Because if you did that, we're done.
All right. So what are some other things that more recent things that maybe we've seen that are...
So because of Mom and I being on that COVID cruise in 2020, when I saw on Netflix that there was an episode...
Oh, the Poop Cruise.
Yeah, called Poop Cruise, right? I was like instantly like, intrigued. And I remembered, once I watched the trailer, I remembered this story. So basically, a Carnival cruise ship doing like a 4-day cruise bouncing around, I think the Bahamas, had a fire in the engine compartment, and it took out like all of the onboard generation. Like, so all the generators and the lines burned out. So they were dead in the water.
Yeah.
I mean, they were on complete like battery emergency backup. And so if you've never been on a cruise, the toilets do not gravity flush like they do like in your house, right? If you do not have electricity, you can't flush those toilets. And so the crew is working to get a tug to tow them back to either the Bahamas or a port in the U.S. But like, look, this is going to take like a couple of days at least. So everybody urinate in your shower, because that will, I guess, gravity drain. We're going to give you these bio bags, these red hazmat bags to defecate in. Whatever you do, do not go number 2 in the toilet, right? Mm-hmm. And so, having lived in austere deployed environments, I mean, there's been many a times where I, had to do my business in a basically like a garbage bag that had kitty litter in the bottom, and you shake and bake to kind of, minimize some of the odor. I thought that was a great plan B. Like, okay, look, we can't flush the toilets, right? And there was this one dude. I mean, my gosh, he was like, if you looked up effeminate metrosexual beta simp in the dictionary, like this dude's face is going to be there. And he's like, and I am not going to poop in that bag. And I'm like, okay, well then after about 36 hours, the ship is basically a floating turd.
But he like on the documentary, he like held it for like a couple days where he was like so anti red bag.
Well.
And he's like, and my fiance and her dad, like I did not want to have to do this with the. I'm like, her dad was probably like, dude. Crap in the bag.
So he was one of the main profiles, and then there was these three ladies. That was some kind of bachelorette party.
Oh, they were ready. They were more worried about taking their shots at the bar than making it off that cruise ship.
They were talking about this experience using some of the same language that a 19-year-old British private would have used, talking about being in the trenches in World War I. I mean, if you didn't know the context, you just heard them talking about how horrendous the situation was, you'd think that they were engaged in heavy combat, for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I'm thinking, man, y'all are soft. Like you all are not going to do well in apocalypse. No, I mean, if they were ever like in a true end of world situation, like they would be the people that we would eat first, because like you provide no value, and I just want you to be quiet. Like I'm tired of listening to you whine about this. This is not that big of a deal.
Yeah, it sucks. Like that is scary and that stinks. But also like we're gonna be okay. Just crap in the bag.
This is a mild inconvenience.
We're gonna portion the things out. That was. If you all haven't seen that documentary, you definitely should. And then you had the one girl on there that worked on the cruise, or like she was like part of the crew. She's talking about, she's like, yeah, we all just sleep with each other. And she's like, I'm in someone else's room when the alarm's going off. And I'm like, this is so chaotic. And the poor chef guy, he's just like, what the F is happening?
Yeah. No, I mean, obviously, if I remember right, the cruise line did right by these people. Like, here's your refund, you get a free cruise. But
and when people were getting off the ship, like I think like the news really wanted to make Carnival out to be a villain.
Yeah.
And it didn't work in that way because all of the people on the cruise ship, when they were getting off, they're like holding signs like, thank you so much to this crew, for making the best out of the situation. Like they did the best they could. The captain, like for how terrible this was, they took care of us.
Well, right.
Which is so nice and like refreshing to.
Absolutely. And so you make really, I think, two great points there. One is the nature of news. Ultimately, I wouldn't trade our free market system of capitalism for anything in the world, right? But that means if you are in the news business, your primary motive is going to ultimately be profit. And profit means advertising. Advertising means eyeballs on screen. And eyeballs on screen is easier to get when you sensationalize stuff, right? Yeah. So I understand that. Like I understand the practical implication for like, okay, let's really make this out to be horrendous. I don't know that the handful of people they interviewed were necessarily representative of everybody, because, like you said, when they're getting off the cruise, a lot of people were holding up signs, thanking the crew. Then the other thing you said, you used the V word for villain. All of us on some level have this inclination when something is bad, when a situation is bad, we want to find an entity, either a person or an institution to blame. Like there needs to be a bad guy. I do not like the world as it is right now. I need to be able to incarnate somebody that I can target my anger towards. And look, there was a fire on a cruise ship. And now whether or not, there was some precautions that had not been taken, I don't know. But that crew did the best they could.
Right.
In the situation, the crew did the best they could. But some of the softer, weaker, less resilient passengers, like the gals who were, more interested in, like you said, hitting up the bar.
When they were like, they opened up the free bar, I was like, that they did open bar. I was like, that is a terrible idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea for about 45 minutes.
Yeah, and then
all was going to go south.
All went down. And the girls were like, and they did the open bar, and we were like, all right, we'll just get back to partying.
Yeah, good idea. All right, well, so I'm weighing in heavy-handed against modern pop culture. I'm not naive enough to believe that in my time we didn't have, our own ridiculous, cultural phenomena that, looking back are easy to make fun of. So like when I think about some of the formative TV shows or movies when I was younger. Well, as I watch them now, if they pop up on TV as a rerun on TNT, and I see them as both an adult, as a middle-aged man, as a parent, I watch them with a different perspective, right? So like Karate Kid, for example, like not these horrible reboots, but like the original, the good ones, right?
The OG Karate Kid.
Yeah, like watching that now as a parent, I'm thinking, why did not any of the adults just call the police, right? Like the plot made sense to me as a 8-year-old. Like, oh yeah, well if you're getting bullied by Johnny and the Cobra Kais, of course you train to defeat them in the All Valley under 18 karate tournament. But between Johnny kicking him in the face in the opening scene of that movie on the beach, and them pushing him down that hill on his bike, and then 5 of them beating the crap out of him at the Halloween party. I'm thinking like that. I'm not a prosecutor, but I'm pretty sure that is all illegal. Like, just call the cops. Like this is assault, right? Right. And so like that was a big one. Another one was like Dirty Dancing. Like as a kid, I see it one way. Well, what was the girl's name? Baby? Like her dad was like the old fogey, the stodgy, uptight guy. I was like, well, okay, she was like 16 in that movie, and Patrick Swayze was a seasonal part-time dance instructor, like in his probably late 20s. Like, oh, I bet you date my daughter. How about me and 5 of these other middle-aged men take you behind that shed and beat the crap out of you, like you freaking pedophile, So like some of those movies, like when I was a kid, like you don't think of it, from that perspective. But as you get older, you're like, oh, this is, man, my gosh, Hollywood, you guys, you all are untethered from reality.
It's like when Twilight came out. Like that was that was a huge deal. I mean, you remember, it's like I wanted to read all the books and go see the movies. But yeah, at the time, it's like, wow, this is so great. And then as an adult, I was actually getting my hair done the other day and they had it playing in there. And it was like triggered a memory where I'm thinking, this vampire is like 1,000 years old and so in love with this like 16-year-old girl. And then like a couple years later, they're like getting married and having like a half vampire, half human baby.
Yeah.
While there's a love triangle with like this werewolf.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, interesting.
Yeah. Well, maybe, Hollywood can blend all that together. So they've got Love Island, and then they got all of those themes. They can push it together and make a show called Epstein Island. Get it all together.
Yeah, because we all know.
Yeah.
There definitely is a list somewhere.
So, yeah. Well, yeah. It's kind of hard to unsee some of the things you've seen.
Like, well, you know how they talk about like the what is that? The Mandela effect, where they talk about like Fruit of the Loom used to have a cornucopia with the fruit coming out.
Yeah.
And then Fruit of the Loom's like, no, we didn't. No, we didn't. But then people are like pulling old clothes out. Yeah. Like, yes, it did. Like, no, it didn't.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I feel like we're
global gaslighting.
Yeah, it's like Epstein Island. It's like, what are you talking about?
Well, I mean, again,
it's like, are we crazy?
Well, the masters of the universe that have their hands on the levers, I think that they have figured out that if they just like push something hard enough, long enough, eventually it'll take on its own momentum and keep going. No. And that's why I come back to like things that I didn't question when I saw it, but then years later, with a different perspective, it has a different flavor about it. And so, like Twilight, when you were in your teens, and then I was in my like early 20s when Titanic came out. Oh. I think I made like 21 or whatever. Even then, I thought that this plot line with the protagonists, Rose and Jack, I remember there was like swarms of teenage girls around the theater, and they just thought it was so romantic, like, oh, Rose and Jack, they're in love. And I'm thinking, Rose, like, unprotected relations with an unemployed homeless street artist you just met, like, gross, and if she had, moved over on that floating piece of wood at the end, there's plenty of room on that to get him out of that water. And instead, like, oh, I'm never going to let go, drops him. I'm thinking, all right, this is cute, but how does this play out if he lives? Like 5 years from now, when she comes home from her shift at the factory and he's laying on the couch and she's like, Jack, did you go look for a job today? He's like, oh no, I'm not going to conform and be part of the man's army making rich people richer. We'll just survive on our love and my charcoal drawings. She's gonna be like, I can't pay rent with your charcoal drawings, dude. Like, and oh, by the way, remember like Jack Jr., like from the boat ride? Like you need to, he needs corrective lenses. Like you have got to go look for a job, right? So like when you see these things, like you play them out, like what's the logical conclusion to this, right?
Well, it's so funny. I saw a meme maybe a couple months ago and it was like growing up is realizing that what was the main guy's name? Like what was not Jack Dawson, but the guy
the
she
bad
was engaged.
guy?
Yes, the bad guy.
Yeah.
It was like,
well, in real life, his name's Billy Zane. I don't know what his
Billy Zane,
character is.
But I saw a meme. It was like growing up is realizing that you definitely would have chose Billy Zane. Like you definitely would have as a female.
Yeah.
You definitely would have chose Billy Zane.
Well, yeah. I mean, depending on I guess where she would have been at in life, Billy Zane would have afforded her, I think, a lot more opportunity to spike her Instagram account, right? Like, they're like
she'd have the fancy jewels.
Yeah. Like she was gold digging before gold digging was cool. Like if she had, pursued that. So again, look, I'm not saying that she was right or wrong. I'm just saying I'm only weighing in
on the storyline of
the ridiculously over romanticized notion that like there's a practical side to these relationships, and like back to the Love Island. Some of those, dudes who are still trying to figure some things out, like I get the sense that they text their mom to call AAA when they have a flat tire. And so in this
Connor's laughing like maybe he texts his mom.
If you
Connor.
do, we can't be friends. So again, like in this fabricated environment, where it's all sun and fun, and yet they still find things to bitch and moan about. What does it look like in a real world relationship? What do these people like? What would that actually look like when they're both coming home from their 9 to 5 and there's bills on the table and there's real crying babies, not babies from Mattel that they got to hold for 45 minutes, but like actual children. I
have
wonder,
colic that are crying for 7 hours straight.
Like I wonder about the maturity of some of these folks going forward.
Yeah.
But again, they're mid-20s. Hopefully they should have figured it out by now. But if not, maybe soon.
They'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Hopefully, maybe eventually. Okay, well, let's jump over into we're talking about all this pop culture changes. I want to jump into music. So we talked about some movies and like TV shows. Music. Okay. Top. So, and I want to say this. I feel like I'm a millennial, but like I'm a younger millennial.
You are.
So
Yeah.
I kind of also see the Gen Z side.
Yeah.
And so, you grew up definitely without streaming TV.
Oh, yeah.
I grew up in the middle of it. My kids have only known it.
Yeah.
So it's just like that middle change. But when I was growing up, my biggest singing idol, which I'm sure you remember, was Britney Spears.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, baby, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Loved, that was like top tier. Now she has spiraled, unfortunately. But obviously, as I've gotten older, I understand why she shaved her head and attacked with the umbrella.
Yeah.
I think we all do.
Yeah.
But that was like kind of my big like pop star. I remember like we bought the CD and like, I would like sing all the songs and like do all the dance routines and be like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. No, I remember. It's
me.
just like on a constant loop in the living room, like you.
Yeah, and like
baby, just all day long.
And even when you had like work events, I think they had like karaoke or like microphone. I'm like, just play the song.
Yeah,
I was like 7.
Yeah. And so again, to a fault, like I'm always, just considering possible negative outcomes. And so by that time, I'm like in my late 20s and I'm seeing this very young girl being handled by a bunch of
Which, yeah.
LA-based and New York-based, middle-aged people like that. Now, like they're going to chew her up and spit her out because they know that as soon as she, ends up in rehab, there are 10,000 more moms who would love to get their 6-year-old on the same track. And so Hollywood will never run out of glory-hungry, people that will pimp their kids out. And I'm just wondering, like, when do we see the happy ending?
Well,
because I feel like it usually runs a pretty predictable script.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's like as a kid, I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great?
She's awesome. As an adult, I'm like, whoa, she was 16 or 15.
Yeah, yeah.
With like in the crop top with like the dance moves.
Let's take that plaid skirt and make it a little bit shorter.
Yeah.
Like they started pretty early, like hinting at they're trying to monetize her sexuality when she's pretty much like a sophomore in high school.
A kid. Yeah, whoa.
Yeah.
But then like fast forward to the Gen Z. Mm-hmm. Now it's like Megan Thee Stallion, Cardi B.
Yeah.
Which is a totally different.
Yeah.
Screw the crop top. Now they're like in their thong, twerking.
Yeah. It's
like,
it's a real, it's a real renaissance of, intellectual achievement.
And you all had Madonna.
Yeah. So she was, in the grand arc of the history of this phenomenon, she is definitely, I think, maybe like at the front end of that. Like, how do you take somebody who's a good singer? Like Madonna has good lyrical talent, right? There's like a teeny tiny fraction of a percent that can sing like that. But she was maybe like on the front end of, okay, how do we leverage everything else around that? And so, back when I was a kid, but like as a child, it seemed like many of the top artists were usually organic. Like if you think about how Queen, formed or how Motley Crue formed, I mean, whether or not you like their music, there was something authentic about how they came together and created their music. Then at some point, executives, figured out, what, if we just synthetically engineer a boy band
Simon Cowell.
and we push a ton of money behind it, we can so saturate the pop culture market that we can propel these people that we have basically built in a lab to the top of the charts, and we can keep them front of mind. We're gonna encourage them to do outlandish things.
That's what we call them industry, the industry plant.
Yeah, and so I don't know if we'll see another Guns N' Roses. I don't know, and I'm just, again, part of this, I'm not fighting the system. I mean, this is just the way it is. But I think a lot of music today seems, with all the sampling and the digitization of the tracks and all that, it's just, I don't know. I feel like we've lost something. But
that's why I love my vinyl player. You all know that I have my vinyl player. It's just like with all the old vinyl records.
So
it's like refreshing. It's nice.
So yeah, like the last thing I'll share is when, like, my grandmother's still alive. She's 86, I believe. I bought a bunch of old vinyls at a yard sale that were from like the era when she would have been going to sock hops, as a teenager. And when she would come over, like, we can play those with everybody in the house, all the generations, even the children. And we can all listen to that. 80 some odd years from now, when a 6-year-old is 86, is she going to be able to play her music in front of like, girl, you look good. So I think there's something just qualitatively different about the nature of music. And part of it is because we can segment it. Once upon a time, it had to go out over the airwaves. Well, now we can say, hey, let's come up with the most cruel, misogynistic, and vulgar lyrics, and then we will splice it in the internet and only send it directly into the ears of 13-year-olds, and their moms and dads will never have to hear it, never have to know about it. Yeah. So I think Hollywood has figured out that it's easier with technology to get around, parents.
Yeah.
Which, back to my, thing about, I would give a young child uninhibited access to an iPhone about as quickly as I would drop them off at a theme park run by pedophiles, because it's just so
No, you
easy.
can't, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a different time. It's the world in which we live. The bell's not going to be unrung, so we'll just go with it until the zombie apocalypse, takes us back to the Middle Ages.
Well,
All right.
I mean, I think we can probably wrap things up
Yeah.
on the pop culture phenomena. But I did, do you think you're going to watch? Are you going to watch the season finale of Love Island?
Oh, there's a 100% chance that I will never watch that again. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, guys, we're going to wrap things up today. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we can't wait to see you next time.
All right. Take care. We hope that you enjoyed today's episode.
Yes, please make sure to like, follow, and subscribe.
See you next time.